World of choice.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin Harris on Bobo 103.1.
And hello, K-Man, and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM. I'm your host, Austin Harris. Our second host, Ellio Solomon, is on leave and will be there for the remainder of the week. Just so the audience will know, he's he doesn't have his feet up. He's working behind the scenes, working on creating and upgrading some more of our online infrastructure as we seek to develop our online platform. As many of you know, we've been working on debuting and launching our new website, which you can find at www.straighttalk.ky. And certainly my colleague is working on adding a few features to that website. And as such, he cannot be with us for the remainder of this week anyway. And we'll see what next week has in store. I will, however, at 5 o'clock, be joined for the first time by opposition MP Christopher Saunders. He'll be our guest in studios after the 5 o'clock news break, and he will be sharing his thoughts and perspectives on the government's first 100 days in office. So if you're just tuning in now, certainly you want to get comfortable by the time 5 o'clock rolls around. And I think you're going to enjoy the show this evening. Certainly, if you are making your way out of town, I happened to be in traffic earlier on, like maybe less than an hour, about an hour ago, heading towards the Eastern Districts. And one would swear the buses were back in action. There was a line of cars from about 3:15-ish heading all the way into Bodden Town. No buses to be seen. So no reason for the line of cars other than the fact that maybe folks got let off from work early. And the only ray of sunshine that popped into my mind is if traffic was getting that busy this early, then maybe with a little luck, come 5 o'clock, it should be an easy drive to the Eastern Districts. So certainly if you are in traffic and you want to provide us with a quick update, whether traffic is moving freely, if it's flowing, or is it more of the usual bumper-to-bumper 5 o'clock traffic as we quickly approach that hour? Well, we'd love to hear from you. You can send us a quick WhatsApp message to our WhatsApp line, 928-2562. I'd love to hear from you. 35 minutes past the hour, 4 o'clock. Again, just me, your host, Austin Harris, all by my lonesome, at least for the first half hour. Ellio is on leave and won't be in studios with us for the remainder of this week, possibly extending into next week, but we'll have to wait and see. Until then, of course, the show must go on, as they say. It was another warm day in paradise in the Cayman Islands today, whilst yesterday we were fortunate enough to have a few drip drops of rain. As a matter of fact, we had some nice afternoon showers yesterday that really cooled the place down. No such luck today, though. It was another warm, super humid day today. If you're outside, you know what I'm talking about. Pretty much light winds, becoming variable at times, was in today's forecast. A few showers with isolated thunder is said to be possible tonight. As a matter of fact, thunderstorms are in tonight's forecast, but you know how I feel about those kind of forecasts. I approach it with a degree of trepidation. As my colleague would sing, 1 out of 5 ain't bad. saying the National Weather Service, particularly when it comes down to rain, gets it right. Oh, about 1 out of 5 forecasts. So we might be in, again, another cycle on the downside where it may not be the most accurate in the world. But hey, we hold out hope that we will see some rain potentially as early as this evening. Meanwhile, the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida, continues to issue advisories on Hurricane Erin, which was located 285 miles east of the coast of North Carolina in the latest update. The good news is this system poses no direct threat to the Cayman Islands. And whilst yesterday we could have potentially gotten some rain from the wake of Hurricane Erin, once again, no such luck today. Will we see it tonight? I don't know. Again, the jury's out on that one. Tonight, though, we can expect temperatures to dip to about 80 degrees. Winds will be out of the east-southeast at 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be smooth with wave heights of less than 2 feet. Outside here at Godfrey Nixon Way, the temperature is about 90 degrees Fahrenheit, but it does feel closer to 106 degrees. What a difference a day makes. Yesterday, it was 84 degrees, but felt a bit more like 101. Today, it's 90 degrees and closer to 106. So, I don't know. Summer's here. The tropics are here, but no hurricanes on the horizon, and we will take that as good news for however long it may last. Travelers to the Cayman Islands, particularly those traveling in on Air Canada, at least on Tuesday, got some glimmer of light. Air Canada, and in particular the flight attendants union, went on strike for almost 4 days. The grounded thousands of flights and left Cayman travelers scrambling for alternatives. However, the Canadian Union of Public Employees, who represent 10,000 flight attendants at Air Canada and its rogue subsidiary, confirmed on Tuesday morning that mediation concluded successfully, halting a walkout that began as early as this past Saturday. The airline says flights will gradually resume on Tuesday night, but warned that it may take up to 10 days to fully restore schedules. This news comes just as Air Canada announced that it will be operating flights between Toronto and Grand Cayman on Mondays and Thursdays. So the next regularly scheduled flights would be Thursday today, although there is still or was still a chance that those flights may be canceled. I haven't heard whether or not the flights from Air Canada actually came in today. But once again, if you're in the know, you can shoot me a quick message on WhatsApp, 928-2562. With the flight attendant strike, travel agents in Cayman have been working overtime to get travelers moving again. According to Mindy Hennings of Cayman Travel Services, she's quoted in today's Cayman Compass as saying, "The strike has ended, but flight schedules have not resumed as normal, so we are still accommodating clients on other airlines to get in and out of Canada." She went on to say that it's been challenging with so many people worldwide being affected. We've been working over the weekend all day yesterday to reaccommodate clients, and up until late last night, one of my agents was working with a client needing to get to Toronto to take her son to university. Air Canada has said they are working to restore their flight schedule, but some flights may continue to be canceled over the next 7 to 10 days until the schedule is stabilized. And, I just say personally, this is one of the reasons why I have been opposed to unions, and I'm grateful to see that there are, despite some calls for unions in some quarters of the Cayman Islands, I'm glad to see that unions have not gained a foothold in the Cayman Islands, because unions, certainly if they don't get what they want and what they feel their members are entitled to, they can cause complete abrupt halts to a variety of industries. A few years ago, you'll remember there was the airline pilot strike, which led to global delays in flights. This week, we're seeing the impacts of a flight attendant delay just in one airline and how quickly that can wreak havoc across the globe, particularly here in the Cayman Islands. And in the Cayman Islands, certainly it would be no different. I can only imagine, I don't know, let's see, bank tellers go on strike. Well, I suppose tellers are a bad example since these days most tellers are being replaced by automatic banking machines, ATMs, and online banking. But certainly in many other areas, certainly I think hospitality workers, I can think of restaurateurs, those persons in food and beverage would undoubtedly bring about a halt to industry. I don't know whether a halt in bus drivers and taxi operators would have too much of an impact on Cayman, is that unlike what is already being felt. Again, our public transportation system is nothing to write home about and certainly could use a major jolt in the arm in terms of improvement. So I don't know whether, if there was a union of taxi and bus operators, whether we'd even notice whether service has been interrupted or gotten any worse. But I suppose it could always get much worse. So on the bright side, Cayman doesn't have unions, and one of the reasons for this is because we have a robust labor law, and certainly we also have a very skilled and diligent labor and pensions office, along with a number of officers working with both the worker and the employee. Of course, the law itself, the Labor Act, is tailored to protect the worker more so than the employer. And there are a number of avenues, not least of which labor tribunals, appeals tribunals, and the like, which can create avenues for disputes to be resolved. So, again, we in the Cayman Islands, fortunate to have robust legislation and mechanisms that has so far avoided the need for unions. Will it stay that way in the future? Only God knows. In sports and in the good news category, you will recall last week we had the opportunity to chat with the president of the Cayman Islands Football Association, Mr. Alfredo Whitaker. Well, in today's headlines, Cayman football got a boost from Belgium. The Cayman Islands Football Association, has received a donation from the Royal Belgian Football Association. Sorry, need a little water there. The throat's starting to dry up. The governing body of football in Belgium, marking the start of an expanding relationship between the two governing bodies. That is, of course, CIFA, the Cayman Islands Football Association, and the Royal Belgium Football Association. The donation, which included football kits, was delivered through diplomatic channels and is viewed as an initial step in a wider collaboration between the two associations. Cayman Islands Football Association President Alfredo Whitaker and General Secretary Marcos Tinoco expressed their appreciation for the donation, which was made possible by Belgian officials, including Pascal Van Damme, no, not the brother of Jean-Claude Van Damme, and the Belgian embassy in Jamaica. This budding partnership will look into opportunities beyond the donation, such as referee development, which, interestingly enough, for those persons who are in the sport, will probably view this as wonderful news, if not news like Christmas, as many persons that we've spoken to. And unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity to broach the subject when we had CIFA president in studios. As usual, no matter how far in advance you tell people you're going to have a show, Cayman time still takes effect. They show up and go, "Oh, man, I wish I knew you had Alfredo on." Anyway, the comments came in after the fact, and one of the comments that certainly seemed to top the charts was complaints about the quality of refereeing in the Cayman Islands. So potential referee development will come as a signal of good news to many clubs in the Cayman Islands. There's also expected coaching education as well as national team exchanges between the two football associations that are planned for the future. According to Mr. Marcos Tinoco, Belgium has established itself as one of the top football countries in Europe, and we at CIFA look forward to working with them and learning ways to develop as players, coaches, referees, and administrators. Cayman officials went on to acknowledge that the Royal Belgian Football Association and its leadership, thanking them for taking an active interest in the Caribbean and helping to create possibilities for future collaboration. So I just want to echo those sentiments, send a big shout out to the Royal Belgian Football Association for reaching out a hand of support and solidarity to the Cayman Islands Football Association, first with the donation of football kits, but this could be the beginning of what could turn out to be a lasting and certainly beneficial, mutually beneficial relationship for both sides, but clearly a really great opportunity to further develop the sport of football in the Cayman Islands. I'm looking forward to the good things that will come from this. And continuing with the good news, speaking of good things, from the football pitch to the office, Cayman has captured the top insurance awards in the United States. This, according to an article that appeared in today's Cayman Compass, which says Cayman has taken the top spot in a specialist insurance category at an international award ceremony in the United States. The country was awarded the Cell Captive Domicile of the Year Award at the Captive U.S. Awards 2025. Cayman also took home the Highly Commended status in the Captive Domicile of the Year with more than U.S. $5 billion in gross written premiums. That's a huge chunk of change. But hey, congratulations to the captive insurance sector, continuing to put the Cayman Islands financial services sector, in which insurance does fall under, on the map, and again, further solidifying our position, one of strength and one of envy. The judges said Cayman was a leading, well-established domicile for cell captives, known for its flexible, business-friendly regulations, mature ecosystem, and reputation for innovative structures. But you never thought you'd hear the word ecosystem used in reference to an insurance company, did you? But there you go. It's happened. They also highlighted that Cayman's popularity in the accident and health, fintech, and insurance-linked security and environment, security and government-linked sectors, and its robust legal and regulatory framework as all feathers in the Cayman Islands cap, again, as being a top spot for cell captive business, premiums, and the like here in the Cayman Islands. So just want to send a great big shout out to all of the persons working in Cayman's captive insurance industry, but certainly the wider insurance industry as a whole. Your hard work is obviously paying off. And when folks in the U.S. start recognizing, well, hey, that's got to be a good sign. I think I read one report that says the U.S. continues to be the major source of clients and revenue to the Cayman Islands. And I want to say it goes as high as representing as much as 80% of the overall financial services business in the Cayman Islands coming from the United States. The rest comes from other parts of the world, Europe, while some emerging markets, as we learned when we had the lovely ladies from Cayman Finance as our guest in studios, Miss Samantha Winmer, and I'm struggling to remember the other young lady's name, the other fantastic Caymanian young lady that was in studios, but they were letting us know that Singapore is one of those emerging markets that's starting to take notice in the Cayman Islands as we start to obviously take notice of them. So congratulations once again goes out to Cayman's captive insurance sector, a specialist category in the insurance industry. for winning top awards in the United States. What is it? 52 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock. And just a quick reminder, coming up at 5 o'clock, if you're just tuned in, it will be our distinct pleasure to receive as our special guest in studios following the 5 o'clock news. We will have with us opposition MP Christopher Saunders. He will be our guest at least up until 6 o'clock. But, you know, as I recall, Mr. Saunders and I have had some wonderful conversations and dialogue. He's a talker, which is a good thing. He's in the right profession. So you might very well see that segment extended all the way until 6:30. So we will certainly look forward to that discussion coming up right after the 5 o'clock top of the hour news, brought to you as always by the BBC. That pretty much tops it off for the good news sector or the good news portion, rather, of our day. I was talking about the rather odd tight traffic that started as early as 3:15-ish, starting to push its way out of central Georgetown. Again, 3:15, 3:30, traffic was backed up on Linford Pearson, on Shamrock Road, all the way into Bodden Town, even past northward. It's the kind of traffic that you would remember that might be associated to school buses, but ironically, no school buses were in sight, so I really don't know what that traffic could be attributed to, but it is a sign of the times as to what we can expect to start coming around the corner, particularly starting next week. And that means summer vacation that we've been enjoying, particularly if you live anywhere east of Tropical Gardens. Traffic has been a breeze since about mid to late June. Well, that is coming to an end as Cayman children are about to head back to school, with at least 2 of those institutions opening this week and the rest by the end of the first week of September, but also starting next week. The first school to reopen in Cayman was the Cayman International School, which opened and resumed classes yesterday. And today, classes at my alma mater, Triple C School, commenced, marking pretty much the end of schools for this week, but already starting to show signs of morning traffic. However, next week, we will see the bulk of the schools reopen, and as such, morning commuters, well, you're going to want to shake off the cobwebs that were the summer or was the summer. Your summer reprieve will go away and traffic will return to its usual horrendous numbers, which again, if I can digress for a minute, which again, it makes the case for structured times as it relates to school opening hours. Certainly an opportunity for one school to maybe, or a batch of schools to perhaps open at 8 and others perhaps opening at 9 in the morning as a means of trying to alleviate some of the pressure on our roadways. These suggestions have been around in the halls of government since I was there, and certainly I'm proud to say that it was amongst the recommendations that were made as part of the committee, which I had the pleasure of leading. But by no stretch do I suggest I had all the claims. I just really had a really quality set of people working on that committee, many of whom lived in the Eastern District. So, as they say, he who feels it knows it. But again, staggering some of the school opening hours would definitely have a positive impact on improving traffic congestion. Maybe the new National Coalition for Caymanian Government will be looking at this in the not-so-distant future. We can only hope. On Monday, the 25th of August, classes will resume at St. Ignatius Catholic School and Grace Christian Academy. Year 2 through Year 8 students will also return at classes to Hope Academy, with Year 9 through Year 12 students starting on Tuesday, the 26th of August. Classes resume also on Wednesday, the 27th of August, at the Calvary Baptist Christian Academy. And then again on Thursday, the 28th, classes will begin at many of the Cayman Islands government schools, as well as the First Baptist Christian School and Footsteps. Now, the first week of September, we will see the new term begin at Cayman Prep and Cayman Prep High School on the 1st of September. Then Island Primary on September 2nd at the brand new CF School on the 4th of September. And finally, at Cayman Academy on September 7th. So again, gradually starting as early as next week, we're going to start to see traffic get worse and worse and worse and back to, again, normal standards, which, again, encouraging motorists, if you work in town, you're going to want to start leaving earlier. Meanwhile, Cayman's tertiary schools also start soon, with classes beginning at the University College of the Cayman Islands starting on September 1st, and on the 2nd at both the St. Matthew's School of Medicine and the St. Matthew's School of Veterinary Medicine there on 7 Mile Beach. Winding up the starts of the fall term is the International College of the Cayman Islands, which has classes for the fall quarter beginning on the 22nd of September. So traffic is about to get worse. Our vacation is over, and that's where we're going to leave it. We have to pause, take a short commercial break, check in with the top of the hour news brought to you by our news partner, the BBC. But immediately following the news, we will welcome in studios for the first time Bodden Town MP and opposition MP Christopher Saunders will be our guest. So don't change that radio dial. There'll be more Straight Talk coming up next on Bobo FM.
Bobo.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News.
World news from the BBC. Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day.
From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Chris Barrow with the BBC News. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's ordered the start of negotiations for the release of all remaining hostages held by Hamas and an end to the war in Gaza on Israel's terms. On a visit to Israeli troops, Mr. Netanyahu said he also approved widely criticised plans to seize Gaza City.
I have come to the Gaza division today to approve the plans that the IDF presented to me and to the Minister of Defense for taking over Gaza City and defeating Hamas. I greatly appreciate the presence of the reserve soldiers and of course the regular army for this vital goal. At the same time, I have instructed to begin immediate negotiations on the release of all our hostages and an end to the war on terms acceptable to Israel.
The Health Ministry in Gaza has rejected a call by the Israeli military to put in place evacuation plans for its staff in Gaza City. The ministry said such plans would deprive the more than 1 million residents in the north of their right to medical treatment and expose them to imminent danger. The head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, Philippe Lazzarini, warned that residents in the north were particularly vulnerable.
Sur la base des informations venant de nos centres de santé,
based on the information from our health centres, that 1 in 3 children in central Gaza, Gaza City and northern Gaza is severely malnourished, many among them will not survive because of hunger. Now, let's be very clear. It is a manufactured and fabricated famine. It's deliberate. Food has been used as an instrument of war.
Donald Trump has described as a total victory a decision by a New York appeals court to dismiss a $500 million penalty imposed on him for fraud. Mr. Trump had been found liable for overstating his wealth to mislead lenders and insurers in New York. Michelle Fleury has the details.
A divided New York appeals court found that while Donald Trump did commit business fraud, the size of the penalty was excessive, saying it conflicted with the US Constitution's protections against severe punishment. Donald Trump called the decision a total victory, while his son Eric also hailed it as a win for the Trump Organization. But New York's Attorney General Letitia James, who brought the case, said the ruling still confirms that Trump broke the law and vowed to appeal to the state's highest court.
California's state Senate has passed legislation redrawing political districts to help Democrats gain 5 more seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. The measure will counter similar moves benefiting the Republicans in Texas. The gerrymandering in Texas was set off by President Trump's drive to bolster his thin Republican majority in the House. Unlike Texas, California's redistricting will require voter approval in November. BBC News. Large crowds of protesters have marched through the Georgian capital Tbilisi in support of independent media. The march was organised by 22 online media outlets to protest at what they describe as an assault on freedom of the press by the Georgian government. From Tbilisi, here's Rehan Dimitri.
The protesters marched holding up torches on their mobile phones under the slogan "Don't let the lights go out," in reference to what they say an independent media delivers with its reporting. In the past 6 months, independent media outlets in Georgia have been under pressure because of laws that limit foreign funding or require media organizations to register as foreign agents. Earlier this month, a Georgian court sentenced the founder of 2 respected independent online media outlets to 2 years in prison in a case widely condemned by the international community as disproportionate and politicized.
At least 6 Colombian police officers have been killed when their helicopter was hit by a drone loaded with explosives. 7 other people were injured. The Defence Ministry said the attack was carried out by the country's most powerful drug trafficking gang, the Gulf Clan. The US evangelical leader James Dobson has died at the age of 89. He was a ferocious opponent of abortion rights and same-sex marriages. During his life, Dobson advised 4 Republican presidents, including Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan. He founded the evangelical group Focus on the Family. Swimmers are being urged to avoid an area of the sea off the English coast because of the threat posed by what's described as a boisterous bottlenose dolphin. Reggie was first spotted in Lyme Bay in Dorset earlier this year and has entertained locals with his dancing and apparent love for belly rubs. But more recently, he's been seen dunking swimmers underwater. A local charity said he definitely wasn't being aggressive, but may not understand how strong he is. BBC News.
Expressed on Straight Talk do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors.
Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed.
The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed.
All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated.
Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Here's Straight Talk with Austin Harris on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook under the key search words Straight Talk Radio Show. You can also find us streaming live over the ACT Cruise Tourism page on Facebook as well. I'm your host, Austin Harris. My co-host, Ellio Solomon, is on leave, but that does not mean he's got his feet up. He's working on further developing and strengthening some of our online infrastructure so we can present to you a few more features that we've been working on for some time. The first, of course, as I mentioned earlier, was our new website, which you can find at www.straighttalk.ky. And amongst the features contained on that website, if you miss any one of our shows, either today, this week, or going all the way back to our start on the 10th of February, our full archives are available on that website, and you could view it to your heart's content. But we do hope to be back in the saddle with our co-host, Ellio Solomon, in a very short time. But in the same time, also be able to present a number of new online offerings to you, our valuable listening audience. However, to keep me company here at 8 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock in the studio, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome in studios for the first time, but hopefully not the last time, my friend and the current, again, MP for Bodden Town West, Mr. Chris Saunders. Good evening to you, Chris, and welcome to Straight Talk.
Good evening, Austin, and thanks for the invite. And for the record, it was my first invite, so I took it.
Yes.
It's a big difference. It's not my first time. It's my first invite, which I accepted. So once the invitation is there and I have an opportunity to speak to the constituents of Bodden Town West and the political Cayman Islands, I will always take it.
Well, I thank you very much. I'm sorry it's taken us so long to get together. After a challenging election cycle, of course, the usual goals are to roll out the red carpet and give opportunities for the government to come on and, make their introductions to the public, also lay out some of their plans. But despite our very best efforts and repeated calls to the government, so far they have refused to take advantage of the opportunity. But we're delighted that you yourself, a member, on the opposition side, not necessarily with the opposition. Maybe we'll talk about that before we get into our primary thrust of our discussion tonight. But very grateful to having you as our guest in studios. And I want to say publicly that I hope we can hear more from you as time moves on in the future.
Once the invitation is there, I will be here.
All right. Well,
so the ball is in your court.
I hear you loud and clear. Well, first of all, Mr. Saunders, I think congratulations are in order. You were able to secure what represents your third consecutive term as a member of Parliament at the last general elections held on April 30th. Clearly, 3 times is the charm and clearly going strong. Your constituents must be very happy with you, and obviously you are grateful to them. Some thoughts on another victory?
Well, first of all, I mean, the victory really belongs to the people of Bodden Town West. I'm just their voice piece, or their mouthpiece in this regard. This is my fourth last election was my fourth election, and 3 times successful, as you mentioned, in a row. But that last election, I probably would say, was my easiest election.
Really?
I honestly couldn't find a rhythm to campaign. My wife, I didn't realize how dependent I was on Shawnette during the whole election cycle. Her sister took sudden illness and then passed away shortly. Her father was unwell, and of course, he passed away recently again too. So they moved in the house, and of course, she had another family member that had a kind of medical emergency. So it really wasn't there. But what I can see, and this is what really, I guess, the most touching part for me, is that this time my constituents actually carried me. They basically said, Chris, we got you. We see what you're trying to do. We understand the fight that you're in. We got you. And so as you notice, you can remember from when you were there, I used to be sending out videos on a regular basis.
Yes.
This election cycle, I didn't do one video. Other than my Chamber of Commerce debate, where I basically had that cut up and sent out certain highlights. I didn't even record one debate. I had one public meeting, but we still had the house, the door to door. We had the relationships that were built up over the past 8 years, and that really basically helped me. So when we went down the initial voters list, and my sister Caroline, you met Caroline, who's my campaign manager, we went down the list and we said to her, listen, I'm looking at these numbers of my sure votes. I'm like, I know I'm sitting on 45%. If I do nothing, I should just, other than to say to people I'm running, I think I've done enough, to at least, sit on that.
Right.
And in a 3-man race, unless somebody got 90% of the remaining 55, it would have been very difficult to beat me.
Right.
So from that standpoint, it just, for me, just maintain the relationships that we built up.
Mm-hmm.
Some voters, one of the things that really caught me in this election that was a real impact was the amount of money being spent, the amount of resources.
Oh my God, the resources.
I could not compete with that.
Yeah.
And I am happy, like I said, the voters of Buttontown West, and I don't want to tick off the other 18 voters or the 18 constituents, but I can say honestly, and on art, of the 19 constituents, I think, not to say that other voters, other constituents you don't have, but on a grander scale, I would probably say my constituency is very easy to define. They're aspirational, motivational Caymanians that just looking, at a certain thing, and you can't buy their votes there.
Right.
Votes in that constituency, you can't buy. That's not a constituency for money. And I think people have now found it out now that big money will not sway Buttontown West voters. These are people that are concerned about the issues. And I think the issues that I've been pushing are the issues that keep people awake at night. And the one thing, Austin, that is a challenge for me on a political level and for the country. And I look right now, I am the sole independent member now in the parliament. And it comes with its own positive and negatives. But one of the things that is really important to me, and I think one of the things that we need to address in this country is really financing of campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
The special interest control or the special interest influence in our politics is not as bad as people think it is. It's worse. It is, and the thing about it is this: if you look at other countries, there was a reason back in 2009. If you look at even the constitution that we have right now, and you can see the government now struggling where they couldn't get the strategic policy statement done within the time that they had to change the law.
Yes.
But when you look at the constitution that we have that was passed in 2009, the mood back then was PPM and UDP. It was political parties. Then the Cayman people realized, wait a minute, when you look around countries with political parties, you realize that you have the issue, again, with money. You have the issue of people putting party above the country. And people said, we want to go independent. I still think there is a place for independent voice in Cayman politics. The challenge that we had the last go around in the PAC government was we just had the wrong leader. Because being a political leader and putting politicians together and governing politicians is not something very easy. You've been there, you know what that is like.
Yes.
So I think that is really where the issue was, and just putting the wrong person there, in essence, created a negative view on independence.
Right.
But people need to understand that the things that keep them awake at night, the things that stresses them, or the people, our companies, our institutions, are run by people. And those people that run those companies and run those institutions are very active in donating to political parties, are very active in donating to candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, they exert serious influence over a lot of politicians. And for me, what really opened my eyes when I was a minister, I was in charge of pension. And to even get the old pension withdrawal on the agenda was a challenge.
Yes.
Now, when I left now, and I remember saying to some members that I spoke to before that had an issue with it, I said to them, no, I dare you to repeat in public what you tell me in private about the pension withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
The thing passed unanimously. And even after it's been passed unanimously and the mood was there, the roadblocks that they put in there for people to even get the money out was another issue. It's like you can see the special interests at work not wanting people to have access to their money.
I want to stop you there because there's so many areas in just those opening remarks that one can pick up on. But let's start with the money element. When you said, if people are concerned or afraid of the special interest, well, they have good reason to, because whatever you think, whatever controls you think, whatever influence you think special interest has over politicians, or certainly during a campaign trail. It is much, much worse than what people think. When we look at the last campaign, millions of dollars were spent on an election campaign of some over 50 candidates. And many people ask the question, where did it go? I mean, has it all gone in advertising? Has advertising gone up that much that we're spending so many millions of dollars per candidate? Or is it going in what many people fear is the beginning of garrison politics, where it's ending up in people's hands to shore up votes?
Nah, I can tell you straight up. I mean, people have thrown the term garrison around and all that. I can tell you, there's no part of Cayman you can consider garrison, period. I mean, for the longest while, people had this belief that, you know, my good friend McKeever couldn't be moved in West Bay. West Bay has said, no, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? So for garrison to really exist, you need extreme poverty. You need people literally completely dependent on government, completely dependent on the state. And I can't see anywhere in Cayman where that will ever become a case where people are just dependent 100% on the government. Most Caymanian families are responsible in the sense that if a family member is even struggling, they will actually go and help their family members. So if you look at the elements needed for a garrison, there's none in Cayman, and I don't see any parts of Cayman that will ever become a garrison.
None yet. But you mentioned, again, being former Minister of Finance, you were responsible for pensions. Certainly in my term as in office, I shared responsibility for community affairs. So that meant the needs assessment unit. It was under our administration that were the precursors to the financial assistance legislation that exists today. We started the drafting, didn't push it past the finish line. So certainly that credit goes to the previous administrations. There were at least 3 last time around. But even from the floor of Parliament when you were Minister of Finance, I watched very carefully and very closely to the debates, and there were more times than not that you warned your colleagues in the House that the debt in welfare in this country is starting to spiral upwards at really worrisome levels. And arguably, when you look at the people who are receiving NAU or financial assistance, certainly we look back at COVID. COVID was the exception. Obviously, the impact of tourism and the number of persons who were receiving stipends. But arguably, a lot of people, at least from an outside looking in viewpoint, suggest, well, once you start getting $1,500 fundamentally for free, it kind of ruins the motivation to go out there and look for work. Are you concerned that the social welfare debt in the Cayman Islands, whether it be pensions, certainly whether it be the needs assessment unit, Children of Department of Family Services, are reaching critical, if not concerning levels? Maybe not now, but if allowed to remain unchecked, could the future give us reason for pause?
I can tell you right now, the future is here. And I can tell exactly what the issue is. The issue is healthcare costs. And this is what happens when you have an aging population, you know what I mean? And you look at the replacement rate, it is pretty much, at one point it was actually below the required number to grow a population. You know what I mean? So, and that is one reason why I focus on the free healthcare for children and seniors. When people, first of all, and this is one of the things I want to clear up, there is no retirement age in Cayman, in the private sector. Let me make that clear. What you have is the age in which you stop paying pension and start receiving pension.
Right.
The challenge that we have is this. A woman right now in Cayman is living till about 84 years of age. That's life expectancy. For men, it's 79. So the average between both is about 82. I mean, both men and women, a life expectancy of 82 years of age. When you're pushing people out of the workforce at 65 years of age, it means women basically 19 more years of salary, and men need at least 14 more years of salary. Now, let's assume someone even worked 50 years of their life. You have a pension contribution rate of 10%. It means it takes you 10 years to save 1 year salary. If you work 50 years, that's 5 years worth of salary. And even if you're lucky enough that your pension would have doubled in terms of the time you're working, that you have 10 years worth of salary, men are still going to be 4 years short, and women are still going to be roughly about 9 years short in terms of income and everything else. And then on top of that too, a lot of businesses, because you got a young person coming out, their monthly cost of the business for health insurance is $300. You have a 65-year-old, you're looking at about $2,000. So from a business standpoint, they start pushing people out. So ageism is becoming an issue in Cayman within the aging population. You know what I mean? So the things that I wanted to focus on was to take away those kind of issues that impact overall productivity of society. When you're pushing someone at 65 and they're still a lot of experience, still can work, still can do many different things, you are now, in a sense, creating a welfare state, because now when those pensions run out, and those pensions, a lot of them have not been performing as they should.
Right.
And a lot of them have basically run out much earlier. Those people now need the healthcare assistance from the government. And that is the part of the welfare, or the part of the public purse that is becoming a challenge.
Indeed.
You know what I mean? So the whole idea behind it, and that's why I pushed for the motion to bring back the free healthcare for children, because at a minimum, for people who are working right now, they can say, you know what, take my child off of my insurance, I'm covered. So that should be a saving for them. And then for the seniors coming in, you're getting paid, what, $1,200, $1,300 a month for your pension, standard pension amount in the private sector. That is no use to you when you're paying almost $2,000 or so for your health insurance premiums.
Right.
So a lot of people literally now have to go on the government, what they call a healthcare plan, get assistance from the government in that regard. And I can tell you from dealing with a lot of those people, they don't want to do it.
Indeed. Well, when you talk about, again, sticking with pensions for a moment, you talk to some pension pundits who have been suggesting for a long time that the amount of pension contributions that we have been making to pensions simply will not be enough to sustain us in retirement. So they've encouraged persons to start donating above and beyond the 5%, maybe going as high as 10, maybe even 15%. But the rub with that is that the cost of living on the other side, and of course the average wages, have not met the price of inflation. So a lot of folks who will acknowledge that my pension simply won't be enough for retirement, but they can no better do. They can't afford to double or triple their pension contributions. Now we add to that the rising concerning rate of inflation. You mentioned the growing healthcare cost, which certainly has led inflation in the Cayman Islands over the course of the last 4 years. I want to argue an absentee minister didn't help, rejuvenate or bolster that situation. But with the high inflation, the purchasing power of the average person's dollar doesn't go as far as it once did maybe 5-10 years ago. And as we look further off to the next horizon, that situation is getting worse, not better. So it's a bit of a Spanish machete, double-edged sword. What's the solution?
I can tell you the solution now, and this goes back now to the financing of campaigns. Austin, the people that are running the companies and the institutions that keep Caymanians awake at night and take money out of the Caymanians' pocket are the people that finance campaigns. Let me be clear. And the thing about it is I'm going to give you an example. And this is one of the things now, I would probably say it's a good thing, because one of the things in politics, sometimes you're tempted to be cautious. You know what I mean? You don't want to rock the boat too far, and you don't want to come across on them as being an angry black man or anything like that in politics. Because people, that is not our way of doing politics. We like to sit down and have the dialogue. The problem that we have now, Austin, is that a lot of people who have come here are not taking the Caymanian people for granted, because we are not that in-your-face kind of person. I've been blessed in the sense, and I'm going to use the word blessed, that I am by nature a confrontational person. It is in my constitution to just look somebody straight in the face and tell them, no, I can't agree with you. A lot of people bite their tongue to just maintain the peace or maintain, and then go off like, I can't stand him. No, one thing with me, I'm going to tell you straight up. You can call me many things. You will never, ever, ever call me a hypocrite. If I like you, you will know I like you. If I don't like you, you will know I don't like you. Right. You're not going to walk off wondering, no, if Chris like me, Chris. I will tell you to your face, listen, bro, I don't like you.
Indeed.
That's just how I am.
Bravo.
And you know from that standpoint.
Bravo.
And I say that to say this. In the last election, when I tell you the special interests unleashed every single thing that they could have unleashed on me, and the people of Boddington were still stuck behind me. And let me tell you what that has done. That has actually created or given me the green light to really go after some of the things that in the back of your mind, you're like, you know, you don't want to be too, you know.
Right.
Now I've decided.
You're off the leash.
Exactly. And one of the first things we're going with, and is a motion I'm actually working on right now, is going after the foreign exchange rate between US and CI.
Okay.
That 4-cent spread that the banks make is equivalent to 3.2%. So if you take 4 divided by 8, they get to 3.2%. When you have a lot of people living on credit cards, getting paid in CI dollars, and then have to go out and buy US dollars to pay off their credit card, first of all, the bank is already making 18% on your credit card, thereabouts. Then they're making another 3.2% when you go buy the US to pay it off. They're making a killing. And one of the things I remember when we were doing one of the motions and we were going through the average return on banks, to put it in context, in the United States, the average return of the top 100 banks was 12% on equity. It means if you invest 100 million, you get back 12 million return on that. So they're about 12%. In the UK, when we looked at it, the best performing bank was doing about, in Canada, UK was about 14%, and Canada was about 18%. I mean, or it could be the other way around. Actually, yeah, I think the UK was 18%, and Canada was 14% return on equity.
Right.
If you have $100 million of investors' money, if you're the best bank in Canada, did 14 million, and the best bank in the UK would have did 18 million on their 100 million. I will finish the rest after you.
Fantastic, because we do have to pause to take a short commercial break, and what we're talking about, very technical in nature, but obviously going after the exchange rate, which arguably has been in place since 1972, since the advent of the Cayman Currency Board, and given the influence of the special interest body in this country, I wonder if you've got an uphill battle. But we'll continue that conversation next.
More Straight Talk with Austin Harris coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
When you're on the go, the experienced team at Foster's Pharmacy are here to help. Drop off your prescription while you shop or WhatsApp us and we'll prepare it, ready for your arrival.
Whether you need prescription or over-the-counter medications, blood glucose testing, or advice on vitamins and supplements, we're here early in the morning to late at night. Both of our locations at our Camana Bay and airport stores are open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday to Saturday.
For more info, visit fosters.ky/pharmacy. Foster's Pharmacy. Better health because we care.
Shirts, pants, or linens. When you want them clean, just drop them off at Island Cleaners. Island Cleaners is a full-service dry cleaner, meaning you name it, they clean it. Professional shirt service, fluff and fold laundry, and more. Even drape and area rug cleaning and alterations, from quick hem jobs to resizing dresses. Island Cleaners, your one stop for everything clean. Artco Drive off Shedden Road. Ask about VIP and prepaid discounts.
Have your engine driving like never before with Pure 93, the highest pure octane fuel in Cayman, and available exclusively at Rubis service stations. Pure 93 protects against engine knock, restores lost power and acceleration, cleans fuel injectors, intake valves, removes engine deposits, improves your fuel economy, and it meets international specification requirements for your car. Fill up with Pure 93 now and keep your engine running like new. Fuel the difference with Pure 93, available exclusively at Rubis.
At Price Right, spending less on everyday products is easy.
Spend less on office supplies, tools, and automotive products.
Spend less on groceries, fresh produce, and meat.
Spend less on electronics, TVs, and speakers.
Spend less on home furnishings, beauty products, and apparel.
At Price Right, we believe you can live better for less.
To start saving, visit us at the Airport Center in Georgetown or at Republic's Plaza in West Bay.
For more info, visit priceright.ky. Live better for less at Price Right.
At Polar Bear Air Conditioning, we believe in helping you to avoid costly mistakes and replacements. That's why we offer a quarterly maintenance program at a discounted price. You'll receive a 10% discount on all repairs, accessories, and services. Priority front-of-the-line customer status, reminders of your service, and no overtime rate for after-hours calls. Why not save money and avoid hassle with Polar Bear Air Conditioning? Need service now? Book our AC special for just $99. Book the next available technician at polarbear.ky. That's polarbear.ky.
Looking for TVs, electronics, sound systems, speakers, gaming consoles, games, and smart home gadgets? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for housewares, small appliances, fans, mini fridges, and cooling? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for baby supplies, toys and games, pet supplies, cleaning supplies, and auto supplies? Shop Cost You Less.
Looking for quality produce, grass-fed meats, and groceries? You guessed it. Shop Cost You Less.
Cost You Less is your destination for everything you need on island. Cost You Less. Everyday low prices on items that matter to you.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors.
Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed.
The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed.
All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated.
Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin Harris on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, Cayman, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook. I'm your host, Austin Harris, as we continue at 33 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock with our very distinguished and special guest, Independent MP of Parliament, Mr. Christopher Saunders, representing for the third consecutive term, but 4 terms overall, the constituency of Boddentown West. And if you're just joining us, boy, did you miss a impactful first 30-minute discussion. But just to quickly recap, prior to the break, you announced plans to bring a motion, a private member's motion, to Parliament as early as the next sitting in Parliament, which is what, October?
I think September, I believe. Maybe September. I think.
Maybe September. Fantastic. In which you will seek to bring a motion that will lower the exchange rate here in the Cayman Islands, fundamentally taking on the banking cartel in the Cayman Islands, which has held this country captive since about 1972, making hundreds of millions of dollars on the spread that we know it today. And you heard it first, making this announcement for the very first time, and you heard it first right here on Straight Talk. Let's talk about that, Mr. Saunders. First of all, by making that announcement, obviously you must acknowledge that the same banking cartel will now be, kickstarting their lobbying machinery to come up against you, because now you're going to go after their quote unquote bread and butter, in which they don't have to do anything for, but sit back and collect. They're not going to be too happy. What do you expect to come from them? And of course, arguably a government, which some say have been bought and paid for by that very same cartel.
Well, I won't go as far as to say that they're paid by the cartel, but what I can say, Austin, is this. Just about more than 95% of the goods we have in this country are imported. And the merchants have to go out and basically buy those goods in U.S. dollars. So one of the things that we're looking at, because what drives me is, what can I do or how can I help for people to save money in their pockets, both businesses and for individuals. Now, before I get into that, I was going back to the banking situation in Cayman in terms of return on capital. So the top 100 banks in the U.S., when we were doing the analysis for the year that we were looking at, their average return was 12%. So it means if you invest $100 million, you make $12 million on it. The Canadian bank, the best one was actually 14%. And in the UK, the best bank was actually 18% return. That's the best bank in Canada, the US,
yes,
and the UK. In Cayman, the average return for the Class A banks that we looked at during that same period of time was 26%.
Wow.
It means then, if that's the average of 26, it means some banks have been making more than 30% return on equity. Yeah. Some may have been making below the 26, but 26 was the average.
Sure.
I challenge anyone to show me anywhere else in the world where the average return on banks' investment is 26%. No.
Yet what is being paid on savings accounts and even long-term fixed deposits is shameful, if not criminal, against the backdrop of the profits that they're raking in.
So I'm going to ask you this question now. Where do people think that most banks would make their money from? Loans. Okay? Mortgages would probably top the list. If you're making 8, 9, 10% on mortgage, what else are you doing to drive that number up to 26%? And those are all the fees that they charge over and over and over for little things. And Austin, I can tell you this. Most of these banks operate regionally in other jurisdictions. Yeah. And I can tell you that some of the stuff that they do in Cayman and get away with, they can't do it in other parts of the Caribbean. They can't do it in other places. But for whatever reason, we sit down here and we take it.
Why, though? Why have we allowed them
because it comes
to
back
fleece us the way they have?
Very same people that are supposed to be the tip of the spear in fighting for the Caymanian people are the same people that are going to the cocktail parties. I can show you on my phone.
As I said earlier on, bought and paid for by the cartel.
I can show you on my phone. I remember, I can show you the WhatsApp chat where we had the PAC government. The night where I can show you the PAC government where Chris left. Yeah. Chris Saunders left the group. We were having a meeting, and you know when there's a meeting before caucus, like there's a meeting before the meeting, and this is a beat up on Chris night meeting.
Yes.
I remember going into that meeting, and they started on immigration because we put our foot down on work permits.
Right.
We had over 3,000 people on stipend, and we couldn't give away the job because we had the stipend. If you give away the jobs, you grant the permits. Where do your people go?
Right.
So we put our foot down. And I remember the premier opening up the meeting, start complaining about, the immigration system and the number of permits not going through. You remember the headline of the Compass that read 10,600 work permits deferred over the last 10 months. You know what I mean? Now, what we said at the time to the boards and to the administrators was, if it's a renewal, fine. They're already on island, is no issue. If it's a grant, unless they really come here to walk on water,
right?
If you can't not approve it, defer it. You know what I mean? Because we can't afford to give away the job.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, Austin, the licks started coming. And one by one, they're piling on. And let me tell you something. And I've said this publicly, and every chance I get to say it, I'll say it. The two members of that night in that PAC government that stood by me was Bernie Bush and Kenneth Bryan.
Right.
Some members didn't say anything, but the silence for me said it all because they didn't come out and defend me. But Chris was defended that night by Bernie Bush and Kenneth Bryan. And I can tell people, when the rubber meets the road, that is where you want when you're putting your foot down, fighting for people. You know what I mean? And one of the things I sit down there and pride myself on in terms of, as Minister of Labor, having one of the lowest unemployment rates in more than 20 years. Period. Lowest unemployment came on the rate, I should say, in 20 years.
Which is now creeping right back up again.
You know what I mean? So it requires those. But the problem is, when you have members going off, and you see, this is where I realize now when the problem comes up. When you're pushing a particular issue, and you will go out, I have no problem going out and speaking to the members in the private sector who will be affected to get their feedback. Because sometimes you can have an idea. It doesn't mean it can be implemented very easily. There are systems, there are this and that. There are many different stuff. So I have no problem going out. And of course, they always would say, did you consult with the industry? The usual term. I go and have these conversations. What really scared me in those conversations is when you come back to caucus and then you hear your own members in that room repeating the same BS that those people said to me. And I'm like, didn't they tell you that they spoke to me and I shot down that stupid argument that you're now coming with? And that's when you realize, though, that I'm like, it's okay, so now I know who is it that you listen to, because what reason would you have to go and talk to that person other than that person calling you up like, oh, Chris is going off and this, or whatever? But the results speak for themselves.
Yes.
You know, in terms of when you look at even status grants, we had like the lowest status grants, the amount of status grants since like 2010. I mean, when we came in, it was like trending to like 500 and something. We got it down to like 200 and something. You know what I mean? And the year after which I left, it went up to like about over 1,500. You know what I mean? So, like I said, these require hard decisions, but there are people that are impacted by those decisions. And then they take up the phone and they call up your other colleagues and they basically said, well, you know, you need to get this or you need to do this. I don't know what they tell them. But what I can say is this. And this is one of the things why I am very conscious now in terms of who I join with collective responsibility with. Because you've been there. You know, if one minister say no in cabinet, it is no. Everything, there's no vote. Everything run by consent. Everybody's in agreement. So that's fine. I mean, I remember when I was Minister of Finance, again, when we went to do the, tell people electricity assistance. I mean, that one I can tell you, I took the paper there. I'm not going to tell you that everybody lined up. Eventually, like in sometimes you just have to behave a particular way to get things done. You develop a brand as being a bully because I knew people needed help with their assistance with their light bill. I took the paper to the cabinet, well, the caucus got it through, took it to the cabinet, and since then, it has never been done. And I remember even last summer, I remember Minister Jay calling me because there were people in even the last government with Miss Julia and everybody else that wanted to help people with their electricity assistance. I can tell you, Jay called me and Jay's like, Chris, you know, the paper you didn't tell people the light bill. I mean, what was it? I said, Jay, you figured out by that to carry on to get that through. And the same people who were opposing it then was then opposing it because Jay, I can tell you, Jay wanted to do it, Kenneth wanted to do it, Miss Julia wanted to do it, but they could not get the consensus of other people around the table to get it done.
And therein lies my problem, because some of the other people around the table, even some of the persons that helped eject the former premier from his lofty position, are now working with that same individual. Those other persons that you haven't mentioned on the list, arguably, as you just stated moments ago, you know, recalling arguments that you heard yourself from the very sectors who are, of course, controlling the money now, suggesting that they are puppets, for lack of, I'm saying this, you don't have to use the words, of the lobbying sector. I think CNS called it the developers sector under your administration. But the same people who don't stand opposed to the status quo are the ones who are in charge of the government today. So I wonder, how are we, and you in particular, going to champion this sort of change and push these changes through a parliament that is now dominated by persons who clearly don't share your passion or your viewpoint, and certainly weren't funded by the same people you were to remain in office?
What I can say, I mean, to give credit, I mean, we use the term government collectively. But what I can say, there are individuals on the government side that I'm very optimistic that they will do the right thing, or they will ensure that the wrong thing isn't done. I mean, I can say that. I can tell people without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, Jay is a champion for people. I mean, I can say that. I can say Ralston is one such person also. I mean, and I'm glad that he's actually Minister of Finance. I really have a lot of time for Ralston. And he knows his stuff, and he's not a person that can easily be pushed around.
And clearly one of the most qualified for that position, as were you in your term.
I can tell you, I sleep better knowing that Ralston as the public purse. I can say that to people. And he has not done or say anything yet that has given me pause. So I'm still optimistic that the government is doing a good job. And I can tell Austin, I want the government to do a good job, because at the end of the day, it knows for us as the people.
Indeed.
You know what I mean? I think Michael Hart is in the right place also. I can't take that from him. You know what I mean? I've met Michael. I've had conversations with Michael. I think, you know what I mean, he wants the best for people. He's very passionate. I can't take that from him. You know what I mean? So from that standpoint, you know, Nicholas, I think, is a good guy also. You know what I mean? Gary, nice guy. So I'm not.
But the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
I know. So I'm not going to sit back and say that, you know, one of the things I think with them now, a lot of new people over there. And one of the things that we had going for us when we first went in 2021 was that no one expected us to form the government. So by the time we put down our strategic policy statement and we got everything out, we didn't have. So if you look at that strategic policy statement, there are a lot of bold initiatives inside there, because we didn't have the special interest up inside people's ears, you know, because no one expected that we would have been able to pull it off as independents. But then all of a sudden, the minute the policies came out and they start marshalling the lobbying group and everything else, Then you start seeing people who agree to do something, backing off from doing something, and you're like, it now starts.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it comes with the territory.
Indeed.
You know what I mean? So it is from that standpoint, I still remain optimistic. You know what I mean? Where, like I said, I have people over there that will listen to me from that standpoint.
Right.
And this first motion for me will be a test.
Well, let's talk about that motion at 47 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock as we, again, quickly, time just gets away from us. You propose bringing a private member's motion as early as the next sitting of Parliament, could be early as September, which will call for or ask for the lowering of the current exchange rate. Now, I understand you fully, but for the benefit of the widely listening audience and as quickly as possible, how will that benefit people? How will that put more money in the pockets of people in the Cayman Islands?
First of all, let's start with the business people. When they have to go and buy US dollars to bring goods into the Cayman Islands, because remember, most of them get their money in CI. They're spending less now in terms of buying US dollars. So that should be a savings. Now, you hope that they'll pass the savings on to people at a minimum. For the consumer who basically has credit card and has to buy US dollars to pay for his credit card, that will also be a savings. So for the business people, buying US to bring goods in should be less. And for people who basically use a lot of credit card, I mean, I use my credit card for just about everything also because I get points, airline miles and all that kind of stuff. You're saving money from that standpoint. So you can directly see that. But the thing for me when I said, and I want to kind of go back and put the history in terms of like when I sat down and I said, okay, how can we save people money? You know what I mean? The cost of doing business in Cayman is also expensive. Now, I'm going to jog your memory back to a public accounts committee that you and I were on when we were doing offering and we took on the fuel companies.
Yes.
Now, you remember when we brought in, and the first time PSC ever brought in people from the private sector to give an account.
Yes.
So we made history in that regard.
Monumental step forward, and I argue actually got things done.
Yeah. And I remember one line of questioning for one of the major importers when we're coming in, and we tracked his oil from when he bought it, gas, to when it reached in Cayman. And there were $2.50 that he could not account for.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And from that standpoint, when we asked him to explain, okay, this cost, and reach $2.50, he couldn't explain. His response was, well, Cayman is a high-cost jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? No, it is a high-cost jurisdiction because you made it an high-cost jurisdiction. I can tell you from a banking standpoint, in my former life where I was a banker, to pay our light bill for our building, we had to write $10 million in loans just to pay the light bill. To pay SEMA fees at that time, we had to write $25 million in loans just to pay SEMA fees. So that's $35 million in loans that you have to write just to pay your light bill and your SEMA fees. You're not even talking about staff costs yet.
Right.
That's $35 million. There were 6 Class A banks at the time. So that's $210 million worth of loans that had to be written just to pay, on average, your light bill and your SEMA fees of $1 million a year. Okay? Do you know what the gross lending was in the island at that time?
Tell me.
It was about $180 million. So we needed $210 million, all the 6 commercial banks, but there was only $180 million of gross or net loans being written at that time. So this is where the thing now drives in for fees. Now, I can't say to the bank when the bank has to now sit down and pay a ton of money for their light bill to keep the lights on, that some of their fees aren't necessary because that's what they will need to survive.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So we got to look at the root cause of what drives up the cost of living. Because the bank, when I go to the bank and complain, well, Chris, this is what my light bill is. If you can bring down my light bill, I'll bring down my fees. You go to the merchants and complain, well, I can import everything. This is my cost of importation. If you can bring that down, I can do that. And this is the reason why the fuel, the healthcare costs, the things that basically drive business costs up are the things that I drive on to take away that excuse. And then there are those at the center. So like the fuel companies alone is at the center or the high energy costs.
Indeed.
People give seriously a hard time.
But it's
the fuel factor.
And I just want to point out that $2.50 of which Mr. Saunders spoke of from a public accounts committee of old is $2.50 per gallon of fuel.
Yeah.
And we import millions of gallons into this country. So I want to let that sink in. Somehow or the other, we're getting the fuel at the prices we're hoping or expecting, but sometime between the fuel getting off the boat and to the pumps, it has now gotten $2.50 more expensive per gallon. And many people are left saying, well, where did it go? And why did it go there?
Austin?
So I want you to think about the fact the next time you go put fuel in your car, that your gas could be as low as $2 cheaper, but because of Cayman's tax structure, if you want to call it as such, it is expensive as it is. And it could be better, but we don't seem to have the fortitude, we'll call it as such, to actually tackle where the real cost overruns are. Very quickly, 52 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock, you talked about being the lone independent member in Parliament. And I want to ask you point blank, are we seeing the sun setting almost as quickly as it dawned on the whole independent candidate movement in Parliament? Certainly the PACT, then the UPM government, were the administration run by the independents. Many people view that as an abysmal failure. And now we see 2025 onwards is the return of the groupings, whilst the only dominant party who won, again, 7 seats, relegated to the opposition for their efforts. Is the day of the independent over as quickly as it began?
No, I don't think so. And I can tell you why. There's something that happened recently that, again, reminds the Caymanian people the issue of why people are concerned, rightfully so, about political parties. I raised an issue with the HSA board remuneration in terms of some of the directors' fees. Now, the HSA board is the highest in terms of costs. Those members literally get paid the highest of all the government boards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some members, first of all, the HSA started this thing, well, not the HSA, the government.
People call that the current plundering of the public purse that's going on right now, leading to the high cost in healthcare.
$500 members get paid per meeting, $600 for the deputy chair, and $750 per meeting for the chair. No.
Criminal. And forgive me, but they're doing so with immunity because of the political affiliations. Nobody's challenging those numbers, and even those members themselves have come out in the public domain and insisted that they're worth every single dime because they work hard.
Austin,
ridiculous.
You've been on boards. Which government board have you been on before being elected?
Let's see. I have to think about that. I've been on several labor boards. I can promise you that.
Okay.
But the stipends had never been that.
Hold on. How many times do those boards meet when you're on those boards?
The labor boards?
Yeah.
Very frequently. The work permit board in particular is probably one of the most active meeting boards out of all of them.
Okay, I can put it this way. Take the work permit board. They meet once a week.
What, now?
Or twice a week. Okay, let's say they meet twice a week.
No, there was a time the work permit board met 4 or 5 times a week.
Okay.
There was that active.
And they're getting paid basically nothing.
Nothing.
Okay?
$50, maybe $100.
When you have a member of the HSA board that's making more than $10,000 in 1 month, a regular member,
yes,
it means that is 20 meetings they had in 1 month.
Correct.
When you consider there are 20 working days in a month, you're basically talking about 1 meeting per day. And if it's a public holiday, in some cases, they had 2 meetings in 1 day.
Yes.
So there are these meetings that they would go on from good sources where they didn't even have to be there. They weren't invited, but they invited themselves along. They went on the meeting, was a conference call, mute the phone.
Yes.
Meet lasted 30, 40 minutes. They said nothing, hang up. That's $500.
Yes.
$500.
And yet we wonder why the cost of healthcare is rising.
No, you want to hear the joke?
Incredible rate.
You want to hear the joke? They turned around, and their excuse that they gave was, the reason the board was having all these meetings was because of the JCI accreditation. I am so happy they said that, and I'm going to tell you why. They got that JCI accreditation in May 2023. Yeah, May 2023. Between June 2023 and June 2024, they made far more money than they did. And I'm not talking a small amount of money. When the HSA was making costing $250,000 a year in board remuneration, SEMA which is the most profitable for our government board. You know what SEMA cost in the country was? About 130,000.
Wow.
So SEMA, 130,000.
Monetary authority.
130,000.
Kim Nowell's Health Services Authority.
And these guys are talking about
Let that sink in, people.
A board that costs a government $1 million in a 4-year term.
Wow.
This is madness.
Does it surprise you that healthcare costs so much?
But yet, the very same people that went out and rack up these fees that they can't explain, got money that they can't explain, and I will say it, got money they didn't deserve. The vast majority of them were reappointed simply because of where their political support lies. And this has been my issue and the Caymanian people issue with political parties, is that you can't sit down and say, you know what, guys, you really took the people for a ride, and this is what you reward? You reward this kind of behavior? Really? Seriously? Yeah. And this has been my problem with political parties, because at the end of the day, Austin...
Well, political parties and political groupings, because again, 2023, 2024, it was an independent minister in office, an absentee minister nonetheless, but the same appointments occurred under her watch. And again, criminal is the word I think has been tossed around for what we are paying for that board. We got a minute left. You are in the opposition side, but you are not sitting with the official opposition. In 30 seconds or less, why?
No, I actually sit beside them, because I actually, I've said it in the last campaign, the only real political party that they had, real and truly, was the PPM. The rest were just corporate entities that came together, finance campaign, they run under the same banner. And the proof is in the pudding, because had you been a true political party, your ability to bring out your SPS, or at least your policies. Now, I agree that the government, in terms of pushing back on the numbers, I could have supported that, because it is, in essence, a lot of work. But I think the broad policies should have at least still been announced in terms of what the policies or what the government is looking to do. So,
all right, after you stick a pin, we're going to pause, take a short commercial break, check in with the top of the hour news, but more Chris Saunders when we return.
Bobo. How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world. Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
BBC News.
BBC News. World news from the BBC.
Violent clashes. Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive winds.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat. Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
Hello, I'm Chris Barrow with the BBC News. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's ordered the start of negotiations for the release of all remaining hostages held by Hamas and an end to the war in Gaza on Israel's terms. He's also approved widely criticised plans to seize Gaza City in the north of the territory with a massive offensive, forcing hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to move south. Tom Bateman reports.
Hamas at the beginning of this week had said that it had accepted a proposal that had been on the table actually previously that tracks very closely to one the Americans had put out there that the Israelis had earlier accepted. So now what you have is the mediator saying Hamas has accepted this particular deal, but the Israelis no longer being prepared to go with that, and Mr. Netanyahu saying talks can restart, but only on terms that Israel wants. But of course, we still don't get to that end point where the two sides have very differing views.
Donald Trump has described as a total victory a decision by a New York appeals court to dismiss a $500 million penalty imposed on him for fraud. But the judge didn't throw the case out, saying harm had occurred. He described the penalty as excessive. Our North America business correspondent is Michelle Fleury.
This is a big legal development for Donald Trump, one that he's been quick to celebrate. That massive figure was originally imposed by Judge Arthur Engoron here in New York after finding that Trump, his eldest two sons, and the Trump Organization had inflated his net worth to get better deals from banks and insurers. But it's not a complete exoneration. New York's Attorney General Letitia James, who brought the case, says the ruling still confirms that Donald Trump broke the law, and she now plans to appeal to the state's highest court.
Wildfires in the European Union are now believed to have ravaged more than 1 million hectares across the bloc so far this year, a new record. Several areas of southern Europe have been battling blazes amid a scorching summer heatwave. Meteorologists say these are becoming more frequent and intense due to human-induced climate change. Large crowds of protesters have marched through the Georgian capital Tbilisi and the western city of Batumi in support of independent media. Earlier this month, a court sentenced a well-known editor to 2 years in prison. Rights groups condemned the case as political. Rayhan Dimitri reports.
The protesters marched holding up torches on their mobile phones under the slogan "Don't let the lights go out," in reference to what they say an independent media delivers with its reporting. In the past 6 months, independent media outlets in Georgia have been under pressure because of laws that limit foreign funding or require media organizations to register as foreign agents.
This is the latest world news from the BBC. At least 6 Colombian police officers have been killed when their helicopter was hit by a drone loaded with explosives. 7 other people were injured. The Defense Ministry said the attack was carried out by the country's most powerful drug trafficking gang, the Gulf Clan. Local media said the police helicopter was trying to rescue civilians who'd come under attack by the gang. California's Democrat-controlled state legislature has passed a series of bills aimed at redrawing electoral districts to help the Democrats gain 5 more seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. It will counter similar moves benefiting the Republicans in Texas. The gerrymandering in Texas was set off by President Trump's drive to bolster his thin Republican majority in the House. California's redistricting will require voter approval in November. During the debate, the Republican Senator Brian Jones insisted the vote was designed to benefit California's Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom.
It's going to fail, and what's the only gain? I'll tell you what the only gain is. Governor Gavin Newsom is getting more headlines. He's getting more name ID, and he's creating a brand across the country so that he can run for president, and you're helping him.
The German sportswear giant Adidas has apologized to an indigenous Mexican community for using the design of a traditional sandal in a new range of footwear. The move followed criticism by the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, and the authorities in Oaxaca state that the slip-on sandals replicated those of traditional Huarache sandal makers without giving them credit. Adidas said it would in future seek collaboration with the community. The US evangelical leader James Dobson has died at the age of 89. He was a ferocious opponent of abortion rights and same-sex marriages. During his life, he advised 4 Republican presidents, including Donald Trump. He broadcast radio programs on more than 3,000 stations across North America. BBC News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin Harris on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM, where the time in studio is now 6, soon to be 7 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock, as we continue to broadcast live on the radio dial and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook with our guest, independent MP Christopher Saunders, talking again about some of the issues that obtain 2 very quick points in the last segment we heard. And again, you heard it here first here on Straight Talk. Plans are in the works for Mr. Saunders to move a private member's motion. Not certainly unique for Mr. Saunders. He has been known over the last 3 consecutive terms to shake things up and make private members' motions that arguably truly do challenge the status quo. This latest private members' motion certainly guaranteed to upset the apple cart, particularly of the banking cartel, where he will move a motion that proposes to lower the exchange rate in the Cayman Islands, arguably for the first time anyone in government making a fundamental, real attempt to lower the cost of living and put money back into the hands of Cayman consumers. Will it pass? Will it fail? Again, it remains to be seen, but certainly it is going to be a debate worthy of not missing, because we will certainly see the true colors of individuals and on whose side they stand and on which side their bread is buttered during those debates. I can't wait for it to happen. But also, equally as explosive, we were just talking about the plundering of the public purse by the erstwhile HSA Board of Directors and the optics which suggest they are doing so with immunity due to political affiliations with board members, including one such who ran against you in the last election, taking home as much as $12,000 per month. For what, we ask, we don't know, but against the backdrop of healthcare costs increasing to the tune of about 70%, according to most recent forecasts. And to make it worse, silence from the Anti-Corruption Commission thus far, which also takes us back to the silence that we've also been banging on about, in particular my colleague Ellio Solomon of the Standards and Public Life Commission, as it relates to the former $1.6 million loan between a then-sitting premier and his then-sitting minister, in which my colleague, not willing to let that go, has put in an FOI to try to get to the bottom of. Chris Saunders, you are certainly shaking things up here on the program, but it is resonating with members of the listening audience because it's truth. And they see it, they feel it, and they ask the questions, who doesn't see it? And again, this issue of the HSA board and the absence of the Anti-Corruption Commission and not even looking in this direction, it causes people to wonder, are the foxes finally running the hen house?
I want to say something, Austin, and I'm going to be very careful in what I say, but what I can say to you is, with regards to the ACC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, they move differently. But what I can say is...
Quietly and silently.
What I can say is that... just watch the space. It's all I'm going to say.
Well, that's encouraging, and you are absolutely right. We have seen in the past the Anti-Corruption Commission
I can say
taking decisive action, but not advertising those moves, and that's exactly what we want.
What I can say is good.
We'll watch this space.
As the institution, and like I said, politically, you don't want to cross over into that side, but what I can say is that they do their job.
Outstanding. Well, we will take that on board as a silver lining in the cloud.
One thing I just want to touch on, going back to the motion that I spoke about.
Yes.
And again, like I said, we're looking at the issues in terms of what we can do to save people money. Now, in the last sitting of Parliament, we set up a fuel review committee led by Minister J. And I can tell you, we made some good progress on that committee. But unfortunately, for some strange reason, well, not strange that is, the committee couldn't meet as much as it wanted because we could not get a quorum.
Right.
You know what I mean? And some of these members who wanted to be in the committee got on the committee and then just didn't show up. So the committee could not get a lot of work done. But I can say to you that, I mean, very active in the committee was Kenneth, was Jay, myself, you know what I mean? Barbara was like really active in terms of trying that. And, you know what I mean? And we did get a lot of good information. So a lot of good work has been started in that regard in terms of getting it done. I think Sam Jackson's doing a very good job at off-reg in terms of, you know, holding certain things to the fire. And from that standpoint, too, there's some legislative change that need to be made to give off-reg more teeth because it was set up with very little teeth to some extent. So those things have to be addressed. But one thing I want to touch on with regards to going back to the banking issue is, as you would remember, or you may recall, well, not recall because I don't think you were born then, but Cayman used to use Jamaican dollar.
Yes, no, I wasn't around.
Yeah, Jamaica introduced their dollar in 1968. And Jamaica had a floating exchange rate to the U.S. dollar at that time.
I was born the year the Cayman Currency Board was introduced.
Which is 72.
Yes.
And I was 73. Now, from that standpoint, at that time, one US dollar was worth 80 cents in Jamaica. So that's where we got our 80 cents from because the Jamaican dollar was actually stronger than the U.S. dollar at that time. Now, when we brought out the Cayman currency in 1972, moving from the Jamaican dollar, because it was a floating exchange rate between the Jamaican dollar and the U.S. dollar, and we didn't want to have the same thing, and this is going back to my research that I've from speaking to people who were back then and familiar with it, they put in this 4 cent spread between 80 cents and 84 cents to counter any instability that the currency would have. Because again, like I said, you're going from a Jamaican dollar, which was floating against the U.S., and we were, in essence, we had a currency that was floating against the U.S. from that standpoint. You know what I mean? Jamaica inherited, they were coming from the UK system of Trump, we call it, pence and shillings and all that kind of stuff, when they basically did away with the dollar. And that was, the UK dollar was also, again, floating against the U.S. So from that standpoint, Jamaica's always had a history of a floating rate against the U.S. dollar. When we came off the system now, we decided we didn't want a central bank, nor that's why we went to the money, a currency board instead, and we did not want the up and down floating. So they came up with a rate of a spread to cover whatever fluctuations would have been between a fairly new Cayman Islands dollar back then, because no one knew that Cayman would have turned out the way it is. And I could understand back then putting in some fixed exchange rate with a spread to give the bank some protection in case there were any movements in the currencies and everything else. And that's fine. I could understand that back. But now here we are, 53 years later. I think we have now proven the stability of the Cayman Islands dollar.
Yes.
I think it's one of the best currencies in the world.
Yes.
And from that standpoint, now, that built-in safeguard that was there 53 years ago now needs to be removed.
On that point, the question often arises, why are our interest rates tied to the U.S. dollar in the Cayman Islands? And is there wiggle room to change that arrangement as well? Or do you think that is the best position for us to be in?
Look, the short answer is there are two aspects that people need to understand. First of all, having a mortgage is tied to that rate is almost unseen of, because in the U.S., the bulk of their mortgages are not tied to the federal funds rate. In the U.S., their mortgages are actually in the bond market.
Right.
You know what I mean? From that standpoint. So that's what affects them. So there are times you see where even the Fed fund rate is going up in the U.S. and even mortgage rates in the U.S. is going down because it's a complete different market. And one of the things why I brought the whole idea of creating the Cayman Islands Mortgage Association or the Cayman Islands Mortgage Company in the last sitting, which again also passed unanimously in the Parliament, was to basically start where the government started backing and supporting mortgages. So just like we have the same like GGM program and everything else, we can, to some extent, use the Cayman Islands government balance sheet and literally start backing some of these mortgages to basically give people stability. One of the worst things that you can have in Cayman, which is what we have, is when these rates are jumping up and down, up and down, up and down. People can't plan. people can't freak out. Here I am, the Fed is meeting, I think the 16th, 17th of September next month. I'm sitting on here waiting now. I expect they're going to make it do at least a 25 basis point cut. I mean, but at the end of the day, we need to separate ourselves, because what's killing us in Cayman is that our mortgages are being backed by short-term money. That's all it comes down to. Right. There's no 30-year deposit. Right. So the banks have basically turned around, taking overnight deposits, short-term deposits that they have to pay interest on and lending it to you long-term. That comes with its own liquidity risk and other kind of risk. As a finance man, we know that. Yeah. And what we need to do is decouple that entire system. Correct. So when a person can get a mortgage, they can basically get a fixed mortgage, and then that's where the government will come in or step in and start issuing bonds.
Arguably, it starts, an excellent place to start is where your motion proposes by lowering the exchange rate. If we can get that, if we can get past that hurdle, then certainly I think it opens up the door for much larger conversations like the one we're having. But 17 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock, Mr. Saunders, I have to direct your attention to the reason we got together in the first place, and that is to get your perspective on the government's first 100 days in office, which the Premier, to use his own words, has called it a meaningful milestone, showing considerable progress and achievement that has focused on outcomes that uplift Caymanians and strengthen the country as a whole. If my colleague were here, he would call it glittering generalities. A lot of birds flapping, but what was our old friend used to say? We're not seeing any meat on the bones. We haven't seen a lot of pen on paper. What is your perspective on this new National Coalition for Caymanian Government and their first 100 days in office?
Well, I will say this, first of all. The one thing that drives any economy, and this is where I am very careful in terms of certain things that come out of my mouth with regards to the government, because we also have international competitors and everything else. There's some things we don't play politics with. It is the government's job to speak up about confidence in the economy, because at the end of the day, that is the only currency you have in the economy. If people think that things are going to be bad, people are going to stop spending money. They're going to start saving. If that means that they're saving, it directly means then that businesses are losing money. Government will also be losing money, because you're talking about customs revenues and all that kind of coming down. So you always have to paint a positive, optimistic picture. So they're doing their job in that regard. You know what I mean? And while that may not be my direct responsibility, but as a political representative, I also have to share in a certain amount of optimism, for the simple fact that I genuinely believe, Austin, in my heart of heart, at the bottom of everything, that our best days are still ahead of us. Mm-hmm. And the day in which I believe otherwise is the day I walk away from politics. Right. The day I believe that we have peaked. Mm-hmm. Now, like every country, we have to go through those teething problems. Cayman is still a very young country. We're still 1 minute one political parties, 1 minute one independence. We're going to and sway. You know what I mean? So we have not yet established. And one of the things that we need to be careful of, and this is one lesson that one senior Caribbean leader gave me, way back, more than 10 years ago, is that most of our leaders in the Caribbean, and including myself, have been educated in first world and developed countries. Countries that are over 200 years old. You're talking about the UK is over 1,000. Every country in Europe is more than 1,000 years old. You can't take the lessons learned from those countries that it took them 200 years to go through or 1,000 years to learn, and then believe that we can take it and put it in a country, a young country that is still finding its way. Yeah. So you can't take policies from them, things that they have done, that they went through trial and error, that they have gone through, and say, well, let's implement this in Cayman. We need to put policies based on where we are in our development. You know what I mean? And so from that standpoint, we always have to be very careful. And all of us are educated, or to some extent educated with a first world or a US, UK based type education. And now we need to take those policies, what we have learned, and Caymanize it to help our people.
On that point, again, seeing the world the way it is versus the way we want it to be is a very, very important statement. And that is what has, in particular, the business sector a little concerned over some of the immigration reforms that have been proposed, in particular the changes to the temporary work permit regime, which would restrict persons changing jobs, restricting them to up to 2 years before they can apply from one job to the next. You know, when businesses can't find the employees they need to run their businesses, then obviously the economy suffers. And whilst I, to your point, you know, respect the intentions of the minister to uplift Caymanians, suggesting that some of these jobs would otherwise be better held by Caymanians, in many cases, the temporary work permits that we're talking about that move the wheels of the economy are jobs that Caymanians don't want or traditionally aren't experienced or skilled enough to occupy. Those at the bottom end of the table as well as those arguably at the upper end. Your thoughts?
The politician in me almost want to agree with you, but having been a former Minister of Labor, I can tell you, and in charge of immigration, I can tell you, the temporary work permit system is one of the most abused system in government. And it is sad because while we focus on Caymanian unemployment, one thing that we don't focus on is Caymanian underemployment. And right now I can say to you, Austin, unequivocally, the underemployment level in Cayman is almost at a pandemic level. Okay. We have qualified Caymanians that parents have put up houses for, have taken out loans to send their children to go to school for, coming back and doing entry-level work.
Yes,
and what that does to your own people's self-worth, self-esteem, and everything else, I can tell you straight up. Some of the changes that if I could have gotten them through the temporary work permit, I would have pushed them through. But like I said, I had my own challenges in terms of getting some of this stuff done. So I can tell you, I welcome some of the changes. I don't agree with all of the changes, but I welcome some of them because I can tell you, Austin, when you meet young Caymanian graduates and they themselves see where the peers that they went to school with in other countries, how far they have reached and how far they have gotten, and in their own country where we have more jobs than Caymanians, for them to be in that situation, I can tell you, it's a tragedy. And one of the things that we don't do, and I can tell you, I got my guys off of my back, where when they came in, and I mean, I remember the premier started about the complaints he got, and the first thing I said to him is, which company did these complaints come from? Oh, I can't tell you. I'm like, what, you think I would go around and victimize them or something?
Right.
So I made him a deal. I said, guys,
the ridiculousness of it.
How many companies have been fined by the immigration department? Do you guys know how many? I said hundreds. And I said, I'm going to make you all a deal. The next one of you guys that come and complain to me about companies complaining, I'm going to release the list of the companies that have been fined by immigration. And I'm going to say, and I said to some people, and some people around this table, better be careful because their companies are on it too. Wow. And let me tell you something. I could hear again from them.
Right.
We had at that time over 400 companies that have been fined. Now, in fairness, one of the reasons why I never put that list out there, some I can tell you from going through and having discussions with the relevant people were genuine administrative mistakes, where they made a mistake, that we made a mistake, and they paid their fine. And then you have some that were just downright unscrupulous.
Right.
Now, had I released the list, the problem is companies that are genuine mistakes would have been lumped in the same unscrupulous companies. And in a small island, that would have been damaging to their business. So that's the only reason I didn't make that list public. But I gotta tell you what, none of them came back to me again complaining about XYZ. But let me tell you something, one person I really have to really single out when the rubber meet the road was Kenneth Bryan. I remember West Oil at the time came to me as chief officer and was giving me again the feedback. I said, you know what, West, because we're coming from the tourism industry. Kenneth, office was down the corner. I went down, I called Kenneth, I said, Kenneth, I'm in West office, can you come down here, please, Minister? He came down. I said, Kenneth, you're Minister of Tourism, I'm Minister of Labor. I don't want my policies or what it is I'm doing affecting your industry. So I want you to directly tell me what position, if you want me to lighten up, ease up, or, give these companies a break. Kenny looked at me and said, Chris, this is what you call me down here for? Listen, unless my people are getting work, nobody get nothing. So keep the fire going, keep going. I said, I turned to West.
You made a good team.
I turned to West, I said, West, you heard from the minister himself.
There you go. Those are your orders.
You know what I mean?
Mr. Saunders, the conversation could keep going, and clearly it's a good excuse to bring us, why we need to bring you back to the table. But we are at that point where we have about 4 minutes remaining. I certainly want to leave the door open for you to make any closing comments. But very, very quickly, one of the areas as a former finance minister, clearly you have to agree with, maybe I'm assuming, but the government's goal to modernize how the budget process and the reporting of public spending is done by making the budget process clearer, more efficient, and focused on outcomes. Clearly, I'm assuming it's something you're in support of.
Hold on. To give credit where credit is due, to give Jack his jacket, I can honestly say to people that the Minister of Finance, Ralston, he and I have met. We have had discussions. You know what I mean? And I can say to you that, for what it is that he's looking to do, we have had those discussions, and I'm on board. I started the process where we brought in EY to come in at the time to start. We were moving from an output to outcome-based budget. The work was already being done, and in fairness to Ralston, he's looking to continue it, and that's what it has always been about. And Austin, let me say this about countries and governments. Not every single time we go down the field, we're going to score a goal. The objective is to keep moving the ball further and further and further till we get to the goal. Roy McTaggart would have taken it, Mark would have taken it to one spot. Roy moved the ball to another spot. I moved the ball to another spot. And Ralston carries the ball to another spot. And I'm going to tell you why I say this. If there's one thing in this country that we should never, ever, ever play politics with, is the finances. And to date, thus far, we have not. And that is why, for everyone who has been in that role, they've always had my support, because I do recognize what it is that they go through. You know what I mean? And as much as I be open to criticism, at the end of the day, as per our Constitution, cabinet job is policy. And the one thing that we will have, and we should always make the argument be around, is on those policies. Now, I am waiting on the government policies. Now, while I understand the case of not putting the numbers out in the SPS as required after the 9 days after the general election, at a minimum, it would have been good if the broad policies were put out there. So at least you can say, well, this is what the government is. But to wait 6 months to find out the policy, because there's a policy, then there's the cost of the policy.
Indeed.
So you could have left the cost of the policy off,
Absolutely.
but you need to put the policy out there.
Mr. Saunders, the consummate politician, balanced, steady. It's easy to see why you've won 3 consecutive terms, 4 terms in all. Three consecutive terms and 4 overall. But we've run out of time. I thank you very much for being our guest this evening.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you for the groundbreaking information you shared with us. We look forward to having you back here on Straight Talk, right here on Bobo 103.1.
The home of the BBC World Service, the most trusted news source in the world. This